Alright, we're back.
Are we live? Okay.
All right.
Welcome back to Mathsquad's, the original Mathsquad's Burning Wheel.
Yeah, because we totally invented the name Mathsquad.
Mathsquad's the hipster Burning Wheel.
Yeah,
The Burning
we'd
Wheel.
have one of those like dueling things, the original versus like the real Mathsquad burning wheel. Like,
Yeah.
Well, I think that would work because it worked the same way with the Ghostbusters cartoons. Like
that's what I was going for. Yeah.
Nice.
80s cartoons. Oh yeah.
All right, so yeah, well, how was Ernest going to settle this in his mind?
So Ernest, after it just sort of thinks silently, still blocking the door, still with his mace out, blocking Matron's path. And then after Matron makes his case, Ernest is just silent, eyes closed, thinking for a few seconds. Then he just steps to the side, plate mail clinking, and gestures to let Matron pass to go downstairs and exit with his loot. And just, still has his eyes closed, sort of pretending he's not seeing anything, and just looks...
Okay.
He looks very conflicted and stressed. But, yeah, a silent assent and agreement is clear.
I think that works, and as Matron just keeps dragging the bag out, but then
it's probably a clunk as it goes down each stair.
Yeah, as it goes down each stair, it's like clunk, clunk, and so Ernest might have turned that into a full face palm at that point. But
yeah, I probably can hear it, and they're he's wincing every time.
He just hangs his head, walks into the back room, and just slowly closes the door behind him.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then I go and I do what I said. I'll probably give a good amount of it, at least that I could figure, because I'm not a math guy, to the finder, the lost and found people, at the gallows. So for when people claim
to the guards
certain things,
who were giving stuff out.
Okay. And that's sort of how I would spread the wealth type. That wasn't a full lie.
All right. So a redistribution of wealth goes on in Pathskew.
Yes. Takes root.
There was one of the guards. His name is Marks. He makes note of this, and he's like, "I have an idea."
Oh no.
So
he'll discuss it with his brother Carl.
Yes. So I think that Ernest goes to, of course, realizing that there was no one else in the mansion. He thought that Wiggins was there, but he wasn't. Ernest goes out in search of Wiggins, and I believe probably finds him. He'll
be in the council chambers. Yep.
Yeah. He finds Wiggins, or just one of does he talk to Wiggins? Yeah. I think he talks to Wiggins briefly, just sort of letting him know the situation. He doesn't mention the thing with Matron. I don't think. He hasn't, how do I put this? He hasn't quite accepted that just happened. But he does basically get Wiggins to point him to a guy who writes letters. And in short, ends up getting a letter written to Ernest.
To Edwin. Yeah.
Yes. I think that's the 5th time today I've called someone else my own character name.
Okay, but while you're talking to Wiggins, he does mention that as soon as the guards from Polyaborat get there, you guys need to roll out and head for Bryansk.
He nods and says that's the plan. I think that he's just he got everyone ready for war. And I can't remember, in our previous session, was Oleg, did he say he was interested in joining the war? He was pretty pissed at Bryansk?
He sees the need for it to happen, but he was probably more duty bound to stay here and keep the peace after that.
Okay, cool.
Speech.
Then we won't mention that. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. So I think Ernst just agrees and is like, "Yep. As soon as this is ready, the actual people who live here can rule it. But for the next couple of days, until that's done, we're just trying to keep people happy, safe, and fed."
Okay. All right. So, meanwhile, across the Blood Sea, or across the sea in the Blood Sea, at Capotsulco, Edwin is sitting on top of a mountain with an elvish hermit. It's been a few days since you got here.
I spent a couple unconscious after that trip, right?
Yeah. But other than that, like it's been a few days past that. One of the odd things you notice about this elf is that every night he sings. Before he goes to sleep, he sings this very, very sorrowful song. It moves you to tears every time you hear it. Every night it seems like the same song. It's in a language that you probably don't speak. But,
can I make a roll for it?
Sure. Ancient languages.
All right, I have foreign languages too.
Okay.
Can I take that in?
I don't see why not.
I'm actually no.
Okay.
Because it might help a little bit, but this is something a little bit different. So
yeah, okay, it's so different from traditional language.
And you'll see why. But I have my reasons. I'm not being ancient language. Use the mechanics for foreign language. Well, thank you.
273.
Thank you for that. 273.
Mystical esoteric is ob 5.
Ooh.
Is that what this is?
Wow, there is a lot of conditions.
Yeah, conditional modifiers, using gestures, pointing, visual references. Philosophical, abstract concepts, formal, ritualistic concepts, or a dead language.
My Burning Wheel book should arrive early next week, and then I can join us all in the...
Yeah, it's going to be ob 5.
All right. I cannot make it, but at least I get a test.
And if you get close, you might get something out of it. Yeah, parts of it seem sort of like you could almost pick up on something, but generally speaking, it seems like a song about loss.
Okay. Edwin is like... He's very well off, so he's familiar with, the fine arts, but this is just so far beyond that.
Yeah. But this elf sings it every night, and every night as you're hearing it, you feel yourself starting to cry because of it, even though you're not sure why. But during the day, he's been sitting with you and feeding you a little bit more of that paste, but just not as much. And you've basically been dream walking together. And he explains that the reason we do this is because first of all, do you have the staff with you?
No, the staff would be on the boat.
Okay.
I assume it would be too risky to carry it around. I have to explain it to my friend Isley, and then I have to explain it to this guy.
Right.
I did tell the elf that I have the staff. If he wants me to get it, that's something we can do.
No, he doesn't want to be anywhere near it. Actually,
Okay, good.
But he tells you that you need to be able to fortify your mind because this thing can be a little invasive.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains the reason you're having dreams like this is because this thing is finding your fears and using them to motivate you to do what it wants you to do.
I see.
On a subconscious level. So yeah, you've been dream walking, and he's been showing you how to like build mental barriers against this.
Cool. So are we like visiting my memories, or are we visiting like strange otherworldly places?
It's mostly your dreams, mostly that one about you in the hallway.
Okay.
Like every time the darkness starts to come at you, he like puts his hand on your shoulder, and he's like, "No, turn and face, do not run." And eventually, after you've been doing this for a while, the darkness like comes to you but stops and doesn't overtake you.
Okay. Am I glowing like Super Saiyan?
No.
Okay.
But yeah,
that's at some point I would suggest that, like, if he can see my dreams, I ask him if he can see my memories.
He tells you that's something a little bit more difficult and a bit more dangerous, because when you're dream walking like this, in dreams the things that never happened can't hurt you, but if you were to experience something traumatic that actually happened, it could cause problems.
Okay. Edwin considers this and he says, I never had a fear of the dark until I went to Etamanaki, until I saw the tower there. Until I picked up the staff. I wasn't haunted by dreams of it.
Yeah, he tells you that, this thing is, it's not sentient, but it has an agenda. So when you're not doing this with him, what are you doing? I mean, it's a hut on the halfway up a volcano, a dormant volcano.
Well, Edwin's like first instinct would be to learn from this guy. Like he's just fascinated by other cultures and history. Here's a guy who could tell him what happened before the wheel turned. Like, what was the world like? That kind of thing. What stories did he remember from his parents?
Yeah, he's got quite a few stories. He does hand you, or he does motion to some scrolls that he has.
Oh yeah. Edwin likes reading.
They're historic accountings.
Okay.
And I will. So in the handouts thing, or in the folder there's something you can see called the Tale of Elder Eye.
All right. Nice.
And it's one of the scrolls he hands to you to read.
Is this going to be private for all of us, or are you as a player going to read it?
It's a little long, but he can read it if he wants.
It's pretty long.
You, Golden.
I can read it a lot faster than I can say it, so I'll just do that for now.
Okay.
No, if you want, I can read it out.
Oh, I can read it too. Right.
Okay.
When the elves first settled on the islands, they settled on an island that they called Elas Shirhers. Their leader, Lorangar, led them up the Eldanar River to the base of the mountain in the center of the island. There he established Eldhore, the first great city of the elves in the islands. For 100 years, Eldhore flourished under Lorangar. The city grew to a magnificent, shining example of the ingenuity of the elves. The magics of Eldhore became legendary under studies of the Circle of Singers, who plumbed the depths of elven magic. The circle had been powerful enough to enchant the Elenar, so its waters would never freeze nor go sour. The songs of the singers were known to cure any injury, provide bountiful harvests, and even control the weather of the island. Lorangar's achievements surpassed even his own lofty expectations, and for a time he was happy. Slowly, however, the grief of the elves began to take hold of Lorangar. To assuage the bitterness of leaving the lands of the undying, Lorangar turned to the pleasures of wealth, beauty, and art, but what interested him most was reveling in the intricate pleasures of the flesh. Wishing to curry favor with his lord, an elf of the Circle of Singers named Wistari wove his songs into the well that supplied Lorangar's dwelling. This enchantment imbued the waters drawn from the well with a special ability. Any who drank the water would have their inhibitions floored. Lorangar was most pleased. He was able to push the limits of sexual ecstasy by having his partners imbibe the charmed water of the well. However, this blessing would soon turn to a curse. One day, a host of visitors arrived in Eldhore. The orcs of Burhad-Gur had come. They were greeted with great respect, for the wars of elves and orcs had come to a close some time ago, and their races now lived in peace, albeit a tenuous one. Lorangar declared a great feast would celebrate the coming of the chieftain of Burhad-Gur, Crother Silvertusk, and his wife, Shafars. During the feast, Lorangar found himself very taken by Shafars. Her body was lean, muscular, with ample bosom. He had never bedded an orc, and at this point there were very few things that had not graced Lorangar's silken bedsheets. After the feast, Lorangar skillfully managed to get Shafars alone and offered a glass of wine mixed with the waters of the special well. Things proceeded exactly as Lorangar had hoped for a while. At last, the depths of the hatred of the orcs was not known to Lorangar. There in his lavish bed, roiling in the throes of passion with the wife of the orc chieftain, Lorangar was slain doing the very thing he loved most in the world. Shafars, her inhibitions lowered by the enchanted water of the well, grew feral and violent as her body rolled the waves of ecstasy. She bit and slashed and snarled and spit, losing all conscious control of her actions to her orcish hatred. As the libidinous dance grew to a climax, she choked the life from Lorangar's broken and bloodied body. The next morning, Crother, having not seen his wife since the feast, began rampaging through the city, demanding that Lorangar produce his wife. The guards of Eldhore could do little to stop him as he burst into Lorangar's bedchamber and found his wife sleeping next to the pale corpse of the elven king. Crother's blood boiled. His rage could be heard across the island. As he screamed and shouted, he leapt upon his unfaithful wife, ending her life in an instant. He then stormed from Lorangar's palace, calling his retinue to him, and they left the city. Not long after this incident, Crother returned to Eldhore. This time he did not lead a small retinue, but a massive host of orcs, all bent on sundering the elven city. The war raged on for years until, in an act of desperation, the Circle of Singers hatched a scheme to end the war in a single stroke. The only catch was that both sides would be ripped asunder by the actions of the Circle. There must have been a reason for them to do this terrible thing, but that fact has been lost to history. On a clear morning, the gates of Eldhore were opened, and a flag of surrender was flown from the battlements. The orcish host entered the city with Crother in the lead. As they reached the palace, a brilliant light design began to shine all around the city. The light turned harsh, then began to redden. Suddenly, a massive blast of flame and thunder rocked through the city. Buildings toppled, trees were flattened, orc and elf alike were burned and blasted from existence. Deep beneath the city, in a small chamber, the circle of singers collapsed in exhaustion. The song of destruction had been sung. Its final notes sealed the fate of El Hori. Nice.
Wow.
So as you're reading that, and yeah, well, actually, as he's reading it to you, I would suspect.
Well, Edwin, can I make a roll to read it?
Yeah, sure.
Ancient languages, I guess?
Yep.
Is he helping me read it?
Yeah. And it'll be...
Alright, fork in, read, and foreign language, I guess?
Yep, it'll be Ob 3.
Alright.
Well, what happens on a fail here?
I guess I insult him in some way.
Yeah, on a fail... I guess really there's no interesting failure here.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I just wouldn't roll, honestly.
yeah.
Alright. I'm trying to impress this guy.
That's true. I mean, if your intent is, I can read this, I'm
learned, like,
knowledgeable in these things. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah, so
it should be philosophy instead. And like Edwin tries to make insightful comments about well, obviously this is rape and it's wrong, and tries to speculate.
Yeah, I'd say fork in maybe rhetoric instead of because you're like drawing logical conclusions from the text.
The discussion of it afterwards with this elf. That
Yeah.
is the role. Okay.
All right. So, do you still want me rolling ancient languages?
No, but you can fork that into the roll.
Okay. Well, let's see here. Let's hit cancel 2 times. Make sure. So philosophy, ancient languages, and rhetoric.
And I don't have him burn, so Ob 4.
Okay. Can I fork in other things like read?
No, read is what you need. So it's more the tool than
Okay. Can I fork in obscure history to have heard part of the story before?
You could have heard things like it, sure.
Okay.
This version of the story probably doesn't go much past the elves.
Right. Okay. Let's give it a shot. Oh.
So yeah, your intent of impressing him doesn't come. He looks a little insulted at some of the things you mentioned, and he says, basically the gist of it is, things were different back then. Like when a king wanted something, the king got something.
Mm-hmm.
He was the leader. He was the leader of the elves. No one ever questioned any of his motives. He did great things, and who are you to say otherwise?
Okay.
And you sort of get the impression that he took it a little personally.
Yeah, Edwin wasn't trying to dance around the guy's personal feelings.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like he seems to defend Larengar a bit more vehemently than just some historical figure.
So I asked if he knew him.
He sort of turns away from you and says that history should stay in the past. And it's not good to revisit things that one has moved on from.
Edwin and I'll have to think about that. Like this says, I've devoted my life to understanding the history of my kind. But our memories are so short. I'll give you some time. I'm sorry to have upset you. And I guess Edwin will go and sit by the volcano.
He turns to look at you again and says, "You should value your short memories. The pain of a long memory is something that he wouldn't wish upon anyone else." And then, he lets you wander off. So that's what you do that day. The next day, he seems like, while you might have come to an impasse before, he puts it behind him. Doesn't seem to carry the grudge at all.
Okay. Edwin tries to put it behind him as well. Today's a new day.
So he sits down with you again, as you've been doing for days now, and begins the dream walking.
Okay.
Why don't you give me a fort test?
Okay.
Just to see how well you're coping with all of this stuff.
Sure.
It'll be ob 3.
All right. I can't think of any skills that would possibly go into this.
All
right.
Nice. Okay, sweet. Yeah, you're progressing remarkably well. He's actually pretty impressed with how resilient your mind has become against this, the intrusion of the artifact.
Mm-hmm.
He tells you, normally, from what he's seen, that humans aren't the most mentally strong creatures. And he's pretty impressed by you with that.
He teaches you. This isn't the first time I've seen had my mind invaded by a magical force.
Today he teaches you a couple of exercises that you can do like on your own.
Okay.
And as he finishes teaching you these things, he looks up out the door of the hut and like stands up and walks out.
Okay.
And you can see him just outside the door, like looking down the path. And if you go outside, you'll notice that someone is like coming up the path, and he somehow knew that this was going to happen.
All right. Well, Edwin is like, at first he's like, well, this guy seems to like his privacy. Like he does a lot of things by himself. But then, like when he notices, like there's actually someone coming up the path, he'll stand next to the elf.
Yeah, it's someone from the ship. They're carrying a letter for you.
Okay.
It's the letter from Ernest.
All right. So Ernest wants me to come back.
Yep.
Does he say anything about like?
I think that
about already being in jail and. Matron stealing all his stuff, and
Let's see.
has
I don't think
city been
Ernest mentioned
retaken?
anything about his stuff, but he
Okay.
does mention that he's currently investigating what's up with Valerie because there have been accusations of him stealing from the treasury.
Right.
And basically all of the townsfolk seem to regard him as a terrible leader, and so he's been placed under house arrest while investigations being made. He says that by the time he probably says at one point, like, by the time you arrive, I will probably be gone from Bryansk, and it will be under the not Bryansk. I'll be gone to Bryansk. It'll be under the protection of soldiers of Polyoborat. So expect that. Other than that, I think it's mostly just like updates on what's going on. Like, we met with your dad, and then we took the town. It was easy. There were minimal casualties. Yeah. And then he probably mentions, he does probably mention, trying to stop Matron from looting the town.
Oh my gosh.
But he says it as, a sort of side note, or even a PS.
Like, does he specifically mention Matron?
Yes.
Does he say anybody else besides Matron has been involved in
No.
looting?
He says, like, P.S. Matron has been itching to loot the town, and I've been trying to put my foot down.
Okay.
Or maybe, like, P.S. I've caught Matron trying to loot the town. Loot the Path Askew a couple of times now. I think
Well,
that's
Edwin is, like, really upset.
very obscure.
Is it obscure enough I have to roll for it?
No, I don't. It's only a single sentence.
That's like read between the lines here. It's probably actually
Give me the
a
rose.
vague reference to it. Like, you know, he doesn't want to admit that it might happen, but it's
Yeah.
gonna happen, dude.
Edwin is upset. And, like, whatever, something about the letter has made him angry. He, like, just crumples it in his hand. And he looks at the guy who brought him the letter and he says, "Can you send a letter back to him before he leaves the Path Askew?"
But before the man answers, the hermit like puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "There is very little I have left to teach you. If you keep up with these practices, I feel that you could go yourself."
And he's like, "I still have to ask you a few more questions. And then I'll leave."
He says, "Very well.
All right.
Ask your questions."
Oh, like, Edwin, like, looks uncomfortable, like he doesn't want to say it in front of this guy from the ship, and he says, "Soon." And then he just walks a few steps away, and he says, like, pretty clearly to the guy, like, can they get the message back in, like, a day or two? Or is it going to not get a message back to Ernest in time?
He says that while the agents can send messages from Path Askew, receiving them would take a bit more.
Okay. It's like, all right. Will there be a problem with us returning to my home?
From the reports that we've gotten, the Path Askew is safe.
Okay.
We could bring you there.
All right. Well, let's plan for that in the morning, though. Actually, before we go there, we'll need to stop by Finching.
He says, "I'll tell the captain."
Okay. Thank you. And Edwin will go back to the elf. He's like, I need to tell you a story, and then I need to ask if you will help. And he tells the elf, like, what he saw when he went on the expedition to Etamanaki, that like he believes that the things he saw like mean that the world is going to fall into chaos and there won't be a future if like things continue as they are.
The elf, he quirks sort of a smile. It's a very wry smile, and he says, "The world has never fallen out of chaos. All around us is nothing but meaningless cause and effect."
But people's lives, like, they have order and safety, and we're able to like accomplish great things as a people. And then one day it ends. Like, what if we never again like learn how to sail the seas, or how to read, or how to like speak to other peoples?
He looks at you and says, "As the ages pass and the wheel grinds forward, these knowledges you speak of, they will come and they will go. But we will all elves, humans, even the dwarves, we all remain.
That's how things have been. I'm worried that won't be true anymore.
It has been so until now. I do not see that changing anytime soon."
Edwin will nod and says, "Oh. I wish I had some proof I could show you of what I saw."
"I will be here, friend. If you have your proof, please come back."
All right. Another thing he asks, he asks, like, if you overheard that his people are at war.
Sorry, he asked what?
I asked if he overheard that, like, his people are at war, and that his city was
Edwin's
captured.
people?
Yeah, Edwin's people.
Okay. The hermit turns and says, I live on this island. I left all those things behind. Time passes. Much stays the same. Your people have been at war with each other for longer than I can remember.
He said, "Do you know of anyone who would help?"
If you are looking to involve my kin in your political problems, I would say that bringing them in would only make things worse. You see, I live on this island alone. I do not do so to get away from men. I left my own people for reasons similar to what you're undergoing now. The quarrels of people, no matter their shape or size, are tiring. And I have no time for them anymore. Too much loss, too much grief, too much suffering.
Edwin nods and says, "My people are suffering now.
And they will continue to.
I can end their suffering.
Even on the good days. You may delay it. You may give them some days of sunshine and smiles. But suffering does not end. Suffering is only placated."
Edwin nods and says, "But here I intend to return. not empty-handed. I've been told my people are starving. Without something changing, they may not survive the winter. I will sail to Fangqing. I hope not to find armies, but food and supplies I can bring them. I understand you cannot help with this. I hope that you find peace here on your mountain. And I hope that you find some way to brighten your day, at least for a little time. And then Edwin will leave.
He reaches out to shake your hand, and he says, your goals, naive though they may be, are honorable, Edwin Wilson. I hope the gods smile upon you.
Yeah, he nods and says, thank you. And poof, we're out of here.
Throw the smoke bomb.
I whistle for Grenda, and we're like,
Ninja, vanish.
You didn't know this. Ninja's a 19th level sorcerer. He's cast teleport, and he's on the boat.
Okay, well, I think let's take a bit of an early break here.
Yep.
Sure.
Probably a good spot for it.
Scene, and we will return, probably with everyone being on the same island, guys.
Inconceivable.
Yes.
Possibly even in the same place.
Possibly even in the same place.
We'll be in the same place, but we'll be in the same place at the same time.
Shocking.
It depends on if Edwin decides to come visit Brian's while it's under siege.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Spoilers for 5 minutes from now.
All right.
Damn it! You're supposed to cliffhanger that shit, not just spend the load right now, man.
No, there's still.
It's like there's a loading screen going on, and it's like the fields outside of Briansk. You're like, oh, that's what's happening.
It'll be like that, though.
Yeah. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
See ya.
See ya.